You are in for a treat today because we are talking about how to tap into your energy to create your dream life with the incredible Marisa Hope. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in. Welcome back to the show, my friend, and thank you for taking the time out of your life to listen to something that is going to help you improve your life and make it better. That is a huge thing in and of itself, so you should pat yourself on the back for that. And you will not regret tuning in for this episode. It is such a good one, especially if you've been feeling like something's not right in your life. Nothing that you can necessarily pinpoint, but just this general sense of a funk or feeling stuck, feeling stagnant, maybe feeling like you're not where you're supposed to be, or like you have a lot of untapped potential, or there's a life that is out there that feels within your reach, but also really far away and hard to get to, and you have no idea how to get there. Well, I felt like this for a really long time, and things only changed for me just a few years ago when I started learning about energy work and frequency, and yes, you best believe it, manifestation. And I went from feeling really negative, depressed, having like a really closed heart and keeping people at arm's length to completely changing the way that I approach life, changing the way that I think about myself, that I think about the world. And that's why I was so excited about bringing this guest on. So a little context about Marisa. So I follow Marisa on Instagram, and she is a women's wellness coach. She helps women break free from diet culture so that they can discover food freedom, heal their body image, and build true self-confidence from the inside out. So of course, I love that. That's exactly what I'm into. And so I loved her message, and she was very just open and vulnerable about what she was going through in her life. And you're going to hear her talk about her story and kind of how the past year has really shaken up things in her life. And it's been tough and it's been challenging, and she's been having to confront a lot of things that, have not necessarily been easy. And I get drawn to people who are so open, who are willing to talk about the not so pretty side of growth and development. And then she started talking about energy and frequency and manifestation. And this is something that I have been interested in for about a year and a half to 2 years, but it's not something that I'm so open about because it's not for everyone. Not everyone is there yet. I talk about it with my clients. I haven't brought it up on the podcast really that much in depth, just simply because I don't know how much everyone is ready to touch on that topic. And there's still a lot that's misunderstood around that entire space. But when she started talking about it, I was drawn to her, obviously, because like frequencies attract like frequencies. So I was drawn to her, and I just messaged her and I was like, I would love to have you come on the podcast so that we can talk about this stuff, like to finally have someone who's in my space, who's also leaning into all of that work. And of course, she was so gracious and agreed to come on, and we had the best conversation because she also integrates mindset and manifestation guidance into her practice to support women on a deep level in connecting to their authentic selves and giving them empowering tools in creating their dream lives. And that's just something that I love to do with my clients as well. So I don't want to give too much away from our conversation. It was so good. There's so many points and notes that I wrote down that we didn't have the chance to get through because we just had so much to talk about. But really, if you want to learn how to trust yourself more, how to be your own guide, your own expert, how to tap into your intuition, and how to create from a place of abundance and love and intuition instead of from a place of fear and scarcity and competition, then this episode is going to be such a valuable episode for you. It's going to be kind of your introductory masterclass into the world of energy and quantum fields and manifesting the life of your dreams. Like, no matter what your dreams are, they are possible, they are within your reach, and you will understand why. So without further ado, let's play that episode with the incredible Marisa Hope. So Marisa, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to talk to you about a topic that I have not really brought onto the podcast yet. So thank you so much for taking the time and being here.
Thanks, Sabrina. I'm so excited to be here with you too.
As I was saying before, this is something that I have been getting into for the past year and a half very seriously. And it's not something that I've really talked about openly on the podcast. Obviously, this is something I talk about with my clients, but it's something that I think that a lot of people are still don't know how to approach it. And it has that reputation of very woo-woo or granola. And I know that as I've been learning into it and the science behind it, it's just been really interesting and has made such a massive impact on my life. And that is just like energy work, frequency work, manifestation. And I know that this is something that you are very open about sharing on Instagram. So I would be very curious to know, I know that right now you're going through kind of a transitional period in your life, and you've probably had a lot of questions to start asking yourself. So how did you get interested in kind of energy and frequency work?
I just love this topic so much. I literally feel my body vibrating, which I'll kind of get into in a minute, but that has been the biggest catalyst. Actually, this is kind of a good segue into this, I guess you could say, realm, because for me, it really stemmed from feeling just so depressed and blah about life and lost and stuck. And this probably was kind of going on for me about a year ago. Whereas now, like when we're talking about this, my body's just like lit up, like, yes, let's go. I'm so
full body chills. Yeah.
Literally chills, energy, like all the frequency. So yeah, I guess where to start with this would be, like I said, about a year ago. I feel like that's when I really started to become aware of these concepts and aware of just how powerful we are as divine beings. Like, we are the creators of our lives. And that to me was a concept that was so foreign. For so long, I for sure was a victim in my life. I was always just thinking, why is this happening to me? You know, why does this person have this and I don't have this? And just really kind of just getting in that negative downward spiral of, I don't have enough. I'm not good enough yet. I'm not successful enough yet. And it just felt like never enough. Just always never enoughness, no matter if it was business related, self-confidence related, just everything. And this was also all going on while I was on paper living my dream life. I was living in Mexico. I was in a relationship. I was literally working from the beach, the Caribbean, every single day. And people would message me all the time being like, oh my God, I want your life. I'm so jealous, da, da, da. And here I am living it and I'm miserable. Mm-hmm. And the thing I want to say to you before I continue is that I manifested all of that originally. Like, I was like, I want to live in Mexico. I want to have a Mexican boyfriend and I want to be able to work from anywhere, all this stuff. And I did all that. And then the biggest realization for me was being like, whoa, I think this isn't actually aligned for me anymore, and giving myself permission to change my mind about that, about the life that I was living, and realizing it's no longer aligned with the version I'm becoming. And that's really when I started to dive into Joe Dispenza's work. So
love him. Reading his book right now.
Which book are you reading by him?
Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Oh, amazing. I've heard really good things about that one. I read Becoming Supernatural. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of the catalyst for me of just, what is all this stuff? What is the quantum field? What is, diving into like our thoughts create our reality, just all that stuff. And I have a really crazy story. I want to kind of nutshell this, but essentially, I had read that book about halfway through 2 years prior. And for whatever reason, it just didn't resonate with me. I was like, like not picking up on it. They're really kind of big concepts initially. And it's wild because then when I was living in Mexico, this woman came up to me and we started having this conversation. She had just been to the Joe Dispenza retreat. And
Mm.
so we're talking, and I'm like, okay, I need to go back and finish his book. And I just happen to have that book with me. So that to me was my first like sign from the universe, if you will, of like, dive into this work. This is resonating with you. And that's when I started to do his meditations. And it really took me out of that depressive state that I was in. It took me out of my victim mentality. And it just, again, was kind of that first initial push to creating a life that was truly aligned for me. And then fast forward to now, I have let go of just so many fears, self-doubts. I mean, we can like kind of dive into all this
Mhm.
eventually, but just to nutshell it again is I feel like I've gone to a place now where I just fully trust the universe and I've surrendered and I'm like, okay, if my energy and my frequency is operating from a place of love, abundance, trust, like I'm going to attract more of that. So just really the awareness of it is something that has recently kind of clicked for me.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I wrote so many notes and there's so many things that I want to touch
I
on.
know, yeah.
I had a very similar experience. For me it started with reading Ask and It Is Given by Abraham Hicks.
I just got that book. I'm
Uh,
loving it. Oh my
so
God.
good. I remember I read it last year and I was like, and I've so had the same experience as you where I would start a book and I would feel like I'm just like not resonating with this. Like I'm not connecting, I'm not clicking, I don't feel drawn to it. And I would put it down and then I would pick it back up like a few months later. And it was almost like, this is the book that you're ready to read now. And that was like my segue into this work where I was always a very logical person. I'm super like critical thinker. Everything needs to be matter of fact. I need to be able to see it and to see have proof of it. And so I really always approach things through like the masculine energy of like just do, and you're going to be able to make things happen. And it was when I started becoming really aware of those things that you can't see and that you just have to have like faith in and just put out the energy of, I am going to be the thing that I want to be and I'm going to just attract it before it happens. Everything started changing for me. And what was really interesting is that sometimes the things that were happening in my life didn't even change, but the way that I felt in my life, the feelings like you said of scarcity, of never enough, of lack, of fear, my environment wouldn't change, but the way that I felt was just completely shifted.
That's the craziest part of it is, the power of manifestation is really being so content in the abundance of right now that there's no way you can't attract what you desire. But that's, I think, the missing link for a lot of people is really thinking, oh, well, I want to be there. And there is wherever you're not. So then we're separating ourselves from where we want to be. We think, oh, I need to fix this about myself or I need to achieve this first. But yeah, that's why I think where people get really stuck in maybe like if you are new to manifesting or energy work or anything like that is believing that you almost need to be different or change something about yourself to get to the place you're trying to go. But when you fully accept, okay, right now I'm so abundant, I love the present moment, and you're just fully in it, that's when you naturally are going to attract more to you because, you're not separate. Like it's just all one. We're all connected, right?
Yeah. And what I love about having you on the podcast is that we're not just talking about energy and frequency generally, but you're also working with women on body image and food freedom in the same way that I am. And all of this can apply to your healing journey. I mean, how many times have you heard, once I look a certain way, then I'll be happy, then I'll be confident. And we always just push our happiness and our confidence out into the future. And then we get confused when 40 years later we wake up and we still feel like we're waiting for that day to start feeling those emotions.
Totally. And the other thing that I always mention around body image, food, anything to do with, a lot of the work that we do in this space is when we're solely focused on our body, think about how much energy is just going to that one thing of the self-hate, of the not good enough, all this stuff. And it's like when you finally open yourself up to healing, and for me too, that was my journey. I'm sure you can relate to when you heal your relationship with food and your body, and you're able to build that self-confidence. It's like, whoa, look at all the other space now I have for other parts of my life. And the women that I work with, I see this all the time where now they're thinking about, oh, I don't know if my job is actually in alignment, or, oh, I realize that I don't actually prioritize, taking care of myself or doing things just for fun, or maybe I want to start this new hobby. And it's like, whoa, imagine how much energy, capacity, space we have when we stop making our whole life about our body and food.
Yeah. I had one of my clients who decided to start doing a French class, something that she had been thinking about doing for years. And like you said, a lot of women will say the words, I spend so much time, mental space, and energy thinking about food and my body. But I don't think that they understand just how literal it is to put so much of your energy into one thing in your life.
Yeah, and especially with the negative connotation that we usually bring to it, right? Because I actually just made a reel about this, so it's really relevant, but it's essentially society has gotten really, really good at keeping us so distracted on our bodies and food and, being this perfect, ideal, whatever woman, that we are so distracted. How could we possibly think about changing the world or having an impact, even just in our little social circles, like in our own neighborhoods or homes, or just in our own lives? It doesn't even have to be on a big scale, but it's again like taking back your power and understanding all that stuff, all that noise outside of us is literally there to keep us so insecure, so stuck, so unsure of ourselves that we never fully, expand into what we're meant to be.
Yeah, absolutely. You said something which I want to touch on, which is the topic of alignment. And you were talking about your life in Mexico, and I am currently also going through a transitional period where it kind of feels like everything is breaking and falling apart, and it's so hard because it's like hard and beautiful because that's something you're like becoming a new version of you. You're in that cocoon before becoming a butterfly. But when you're in it, there's a lot of suck and there's a lot of darkness and a lot of confusion and feeling lost. So when you manifested going to Mexico, having a Mexican boyfriend, and you really felt like this is what I want, how would you define what it means to be in alignment, to live an aligned life? And how did it feel for you when you started realizing, ooh, I don't know if this is in alignment with my life anymore?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. Alignment, I feel, is something that I think about every single day and multiple times a day, because it's something where, again, coming back to like if you have a meditation practice or a stillness practice where you can go within, find that space of just being with yourself, essentially. Like so many of us, I think this is important to say too, so many of us, we run around with our heads cut off most of the day, right? Like we're busy, we're on the go, we have stuff to do, we have a to-do list, we have people to cater to, whether it's kids, clients, work, whatever. And if we never give ourselves the time to go within and sit with ourselves and have, some quiet time, essentially, like put yourself in a corner if you need to, or in a closet, but how are we supposed to know what our body and our intuition is telling us? Like our bioenergetic field, the frequencies we operate from, like our body is so smart. And what I've really been able to tune into, which I'm so grateful for, because I was basically forced into this kind of time of rest and going within, and like I said, sitting with all those really difficult things, is now I know in my body when something feels off or something feels, I don't know about that. And in the past, I would just ignore that because I'm just like, oh, I don't know, I'm just stressed or I'm anxious about something, or, oh, this is just like, I just wouldn't even think of it. And now I'm just like, wait, my body's telling me something for a reason. whether it was like my stomach would start to hurt or my body would just tense up. Like now I notice all those subtle cues. So when I first went to Mexico, obviously I'm just enjoying exploring and I'm having fun meeting new people. And it's, of course, so beautiful there. But over time, I was just starting to feel like, firstly, the biggest sign was like, I didn't want to get out of bed. So I would have a really hard time. I was doing my meditations. I was practicing my gratitude. I was like, okay, I'm literally in the most beautiful place on the planet, basically. Why do I feel this way? And again, instead of like gaslighting myself or just running around trying to distract myself, I would like sit with it and just kind of be like, okay, what's no longer feeling good for me? And it was just, there was a few things. It was just missing my family and just feeling kind of stuck there, like I wasn't growing. And regardless of the reason, I just knew, okay, my body's telling me that something's not right and I have to listen to that. And I kind of just knew too deep down, like if I would have stayed, it just would have gotten worse because I'm someone who will kind of like, I'll try everything, if you will, before I'm not like an impulsive decision maker. I'm like, okay, I'll try this. I'll see if it helps. So I really tried so many things that I know, okay, this helps me get out of funk, or this helps me connect deeper to myself, or this lights me up or fills my cup up. And at the end of the day, if those things just aren't substantial enough to kind of make me feel like you say it's in alignment, but really it's just feeling good in my body, nothing was working. For me, I just listened to it, thankfully. And I think in the past, people can probably relate to this listening, but in the past, I would have just stayed for way longer than I needed to and just stayed stuck, kept ignoring my body. Who knows? I could have caused like an injury, autoimmune stuff, like all these things where our body's like signals. I'm telling you something. And usually we ignore it.
Yeah. I have like so much energy rushing through me because we are so similar. I am the same. Like if I'm going through something, trust me, I have my checklist of things that I will try that I know will start to make me feel better and that I can like just touch on. And there does get to a point where the biggest piece, and I think that's the hardest piece for all of us to do, is realizing that you need to let go of something. And that I think is the biggest reason why people will stay stuck in a job, a relationship, a country, a situation that is no longer serving them because they perceive the pain of change as being greater than the pain of staying where you are. And you had to uproot your life. And so what was the mindset that you had to take in order to say, this is going to be uncomfortable, this is going to be scary, I'm going to have to let go of a version of me? Like, what was going through your mind in order to get you to make that change?
Yeah. I appreciate you saying too, like it is for a lot of people, like the change is so scary and hard. And that's usually why we don't do it. So I also want to just acknowledge that it's not easy to just be like, oh, this isn't working for me anymore, I'm going to change it. Like it doesn't work like that. And especially when it comes down to maybe you're in a situation where it's not terrible, but you just know it's not fully right. That's really hard too, because then you're like, well, why would I leave something that's quote unquote comfortable, even though my body knows, like, okay, this isn't really it for me. And that's kind of how I felt, like there wasn't necessarily anything quote unquote bad or wrong with my life there. And I look back and I'm still like, whoa, I am so grateful for that. I have so many amazing memories and I still think about it, like truly. But it was one of those things where I just knew in my body again, like, okay, if I stay longer, what is my life going to look like? Firstly, like I really tried to see the bigger picture for what it was of like, okay, if I spend another 2 years here, am I going to have more of what I want or less of what I want? And that answer to me was kind of obvious of just, okay, I feel like I would just be in the same position. I felt really stuck at the time. And of course, it's also harder when there's other people involved and, it's not just you're making a decision about. But again, I kind of had to find that inner self love and confidence that I've been working so hard on my whole entire like span of my 20s, basically. And really that was like kind of, I feel, a test from the universe to be like, okay, like, are you gonna choose yourself and the life you want for yourself, or are you gonna keep like morphing yourself in for someone else's life and kind of give up what you want or the visions that you have for yourself? And so I think a lot of things transpired. And again, like I took my time. It wasn't just oh, I feel like crap, I'm leaving. It probably took me 6 to 8 months of just feeling it out, giving myself time, kind of being in that suck of like, okay, I kind of know this isn't a forever thing, but I'm just gonna give myself some time here, until I really just kind of, I guess you could say it was kind of a breaking point of just like, I can't do this to myself anymore. And again, I think there is such a thing as divine timing where whether I had stayed longer or left earlier, all of it would have been right. Like, I think that's the biggest thing we get caught up into is, oh, I don't know if I'm making the right decision, or what if this is the wrong decision, or da da da. But it's like, you can't mess up your life. You can't mess up your timeline. And for me now, looking back, it's like, I had to leave when I did. And I don't know what's going to happen next. Like, I really don't know what is in my direct future as of right now. But I think, yeah, anyone going through those feelings of just knowing, okay, this isn't maybe lighting me up anymore, or I feel like there's more, my best advice, I guess you could say, is just tune into that. Tune into, okay, what's not feeling aligned? What would feel more aligned? What would the version of me I want to become, decide or want to create in their life? And just kind of that's kind of the journey that I had of just prompting myself, getting curious, like what's not flowing anymore. And that's, again, just comes with that internal work of sitting with yourself, right? Like going inwards, like you got to slow down to see what's going on.
Are you familiar with the concept of ego death?
Oh yeah. And that's another part of it too, is not only ego death, but it's, that like death and rebirth of, like you were saying, that old version of yourself, right? Like there is that mourning period of not wanting to let go of a certain chapter in your life or a certain chapter of you. And I feel like I died and rebirthed like 7 times in the last 6 months.
Yeah. And this can be so intimately related to the process of like when you've been dieting or stuck in disordered eating for your entire life. And I know for me, I had that moment. I love that you said, I asked myself, okay, what is this going to look like 2 years from now? And that was really the moment that I had as well when I hit my rock bottom. And I asked myself, like, I tell myself that I want to travel, that I want to be this person who's spontaneous, who experiences life, that I have all of these values and things that I want to accomplish. And yet I cannot even leave the house without feeling anxious about how many calories I'll eat. And it was thinking about my future and what that would look like, and really having that brutal realization. And it is a grieving process, because a part of you literally has to die in order for you to step into the next version of you. And that's why it's not this overnight process. If you hear of people who've been in long relationships and they're contemplating breaking up or divorce, it's not this overnight thing where you're like, oop, don't want to be with you anymore. It's a process. You go through the stages of grief, and same will happen if you are listening to this podcast and you're starting to learn about food freedom and intuitive eating, and you're getting curious about your relationship with food, and you don't quite feel ready yet, and it feels uncomfortable, and sometimes it literally feels like you're dying, because there's this shedding that needs to happen. There's this letting go that needs to happen. And it's a part of the process. Unfortunately, you can't avoid the discomfort.
Yeah. And if anything, that's the biggest sign of your growth and of your healing. And it's kind of like this cathartic thing where if I'm going through a breakup or I'm going through a tough time, obviously it, like you said, it's sucky. Like there's no way around it, but it's sitting in those feelings. It's almost like your body knows, whoa, epic change is coming.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be me stepping into like a higher timeline or a more empowered version of myself. So it's, again, what I wanted to say when you were explaining that too, is holding space for all versions of yourself, I think is also so key, because I think for a lot of us, there's a tendency to be frustrated with ourselves or beat ourselves up for like, oh, this is how I used to be, or oh, I'm still struggling with this, or fears are coming out, doubts are coming up. And I hate that. But that shadow side of ourselves it's still part of us. And when you can hold space for that, that's how you actually surrender and let go. Like we can't be fighting with, the light and the dark. It's just they both exist. The dualities need to exist. And I feel like that was a big shift for me too, when I was just like, okay, I feel like you said, I'm dying. This sucks. It's really hard. I'm crying a lot. Can't really even work because I just need to focus on me. And I know not everyone, has that luxury, but just again, to say sitting with those really uncomfortable feelings, like that's where the growth happens. Like leaning into the fear is where you break through those limiting beliefs.
Yeah, I remember I was at a retreat in December and I made a really big decision to invest in myself more than I ever had. And it was terrifying. Like I remember giving my credit card and being so scared, but I knew that I was stepping into a new version of me. And I had this realization that I used to be terrified of problems. I used to be terrified of challenges, of hard times, because who wants that? Like, who is like, please give me more problems? And it was when you look at it in retrospect and you look at your past and how you became the version that you are today, you don't learn much from wins. You don't learn much from things going easy and smoothly. You become resilient and you become strong and you learn your lessons from those problems, from those challenges. And now whenever I am going through something where I'm like, this is hard and I'm having to work through a lot, not only am I thinking about how this is shaping me into the newer version of me who has more wisdom, but it's also helping me to help my clients, because how am I supposed to help them with their hardest challenges if I haven't gone through anything hard myself?
Absolutely. I feel like one of the biggest things I learned a few years ago, similarly going through like a really difficult injury and just all these things came at me. Finally, it clicked where I was kind of starting to reflect on, instead of, again, why is this happening to me? What is this teaching me? And I feel like that perspective, exactly what you were saying, changes everything, because that is when we grow the most. That is when we then, okay, I have more compassion for this person going through this, or I can relate to this person. And it really is, like you said, if neither of us had ever gone through any of the challenges we went through, how can we relate and help people on a deeper level, right?
Yeah.
It's all a catalyst for our own evolution.
Yeah. So what came up to me intuitively is, for someone who's listening to all of this, and you mentioned before being comfortable with sitting still, right? We are addicted, even if we're done checking off all of our to-do lists and picking the kids up for work. When we're alone, we watch TV, we scroll on our phone, we want to distract ourselves. And I actually don't know about you, but especially recently, I've just felt like this urge to be away from screens and to be away from my phone. And like, it's hard because you work on your phone and on your computer, but like, I want to reconnect to myself as much as possible. And I find when you have all of the energies of people around you, even if it's just virtually, it can be really impactful and make it hard to really listen to yourself. But I know that when you're getting started, that feels really scary. Like you're afraid of what's going to come up. What if I realize that I'm unhappy in my marriage? What if I'm realizing that I've made all of these mistakes that I've been distracting myself from? So anyone who is listening to all of this and it makes sense intellectually, but then there's like this fear that you won't be able to avoid anymore, what would you say to that person who wants to learn how to tap into their intuition and how to get in alignment?
Well, firstly, I just want to say, girl, you're preaching to the choir, because I've literally, in the last few months, I've been just wanting to throw my phone into a lake and go just become one with the forest. I'm just gonna sit down here, like hug a tree. Yeah, just nature all day. Yeah, this is such a good, area of conversation, because it isn't talked about enough. And even when you are even looking for resources like this, you're looking on your phone, you're looking on YouTube, and you're still tuned in. And that's the part of it where I always say to everyone I talk to, work with, whatever, is that you have all the answers within. Even if you're working with someone, like I am not your guru, I don't know more than you. It's just that, I'm maybe guiding you somewhere, but you have all the answers. That's like the biggest thing I want to get across to everyone is that when you do go sit with yourself, yes, it's for sure a little bit scary if you're not used to it, but you already know. There's this inner knowing that we all have of just, if you can trust that part of you and tune back into it, whoa, life-changing firstly. The second thing I think is really important to mention too is that I think a lot of people, when we think about sitting with ourselves and actually tuning into what's there, or maybe even just holding space for those uncomfortable emotions, maybe we know we are stressed or sad or grieving in some way, and we're scared that if we give that part of ourselves more attention, we're going to manifest more of it. But that's not what happens. When we deliberately and intentionally have space for those things, that's when we can release it. It's when we ignore it and suppress it and distract ourselves from it, that's when we create more of it, because then it's in our subconscious, then it's just living with us on a day-to-day basis. So
like it's still part of your energy, even if you're not giving attention to it.
Exactly. And there's such a difference between being unconscious to what's going on in your body versus intentionally holding space for it and then letting it go, essentially. Because when you hold space for any emotion, the most heightened, intense part of it can only last 90 seconds, actually. So if you're bawling your face off, if you just actually let yourself bawl as hard as you want to cry, you'll only cry intensely for about 90 seconds. Seriously.
Yeah.
I get it. I've done it.
You put your timer on.
Timer's on. Okay, it's true. And that's just how the body works. When we give it space to be released, we can let go of it. So for anyone wanting to intentionally more so sit with yourself, again, I would start small, and I would also pair it with nature, because when we connect to nature, I was kind of joking, but not really joking about hugging a tree, literally just go hug a tree, put your feet in the earth, feel and absorb the frequencies from the earth. It's so healing. We're part of nature, and that goes hand in hand with our connection to ourselves. So it's get off your phone, go sit or hug next to a tree, sit next to a tree, hug a tree, put your feet in the grass start with 5 minutes of just sitting there and see what happens. What do you hear? What do you smell? Be with your senses. And then any thoughts that come up, let them be there, but also don't dwell on them, right? It's almost imagining your thoughts are clouds, and okay, I'm aware of them, and then they're passing by me.
Yeah.
And this is a process. I started meditating over a year ago, and I feel just in the last few months, it's clicked for me in a way where I can just tune in and be so in the present moment and aligned with whatever is coming up for me. And again, it's not about having no thoughts. It's just a matter of being with yourself in the present moment, not trying to be somewhere else, not trying to check off more on your to-do list.
Yeah.
And holding space for whatever comes up, zero judgment. Also.
Yeah. I remember I started meditating probably a year and a half ago. And I started because it was almost as a rebellion, because I kept hearing on podcasts, everyone would talk about meditation. And I was like, okay, I am so annoyed about hearing about meditation. So I guess I'll give it a try. So I gave myself a month, and I was like, I'll just do 3 minutes a day for a month, and we'll see if it makes any difference. And after a month, I was like, okay, there's something to this. I don't know what yet, but there's definitely something to this, and I'm going to stick to it. And it's a slow burn. It's something that over time you realize, oh, I'm able to be more mindful. I'm able to bring myself back to the present. It is a mental exercise. And it's not, what's really important is I used to think it's this is the stuff that only the Buddhist monk will do, right? It's really, spirituality is not for me. It's for the people who do yoga. I really just didn't see it as something that was rooted in science or actually any evidence. And now, like, I cannot recommend it enough. Like, it is one of the best things that I've ever done in order to be with myself and to be present. And what you said about nature, like, I live by the water, and if I'm having a moment, if I'm having a rough day, all I need to do is go by the water, and instantly I feel more connected, I feel more present, I feel more grounded. And it's like you're really bringing yourself out of that fight or flight where it feels like everything's about to burn down and everything's urgent. And then you can bring yourself back to the connection of the earth where it's like everything is okay and it's not as serious as you make it out to be.
Yeah, I feel like nature just has that calming effect of it allows you to zoom out. Like I'm like, whoa, okay, we're just on this floating rock shooting through space. Look at these trees. Look at how the sun hits the trees. It's almost like a hobby of mine to just
Yeah.
be in nature and notice, like the art of noticing, right? And it's no coincidence that we feel good by water and good in nature and we feel more connected because again, we are part of nature, but there are also just certain frequencies and energies that we pick up and that can be really healing for us. Even I read somewhere that touching a tree, even for like a second, can offload the EMFs that we get from our devices because
Wow.
it's just picking up all that, you know, electromagnetic frequencies. And so when we do go out in nature and again we're connected to it, you're barefoot or you're laying in the grass or you're in water is even better. Yeah, it's like it's coming back home for our bodies essentially. So healing.
Absolutely. Marissa, I could literally talk to you for hours, and there's so many things that I wrote down. I'm like, okay, we're not going to have time to get through to that. But I want to talk to that person who, as we wrap things up, who might be thinking, this all sounds great, but I have so many other things that are more important, right? And I don't even know where to start. It sounds like a lot. Okay, spend time in nature and meditate and journal, and I just don't have time for that. So what would you say to that person as to like, why is at least dipping your toes in this so important and should be made a priority? And like, how to even start small?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the first thing I would ask this person listening is, again, what kind of life do you want to be living? It's the simplest way to reflect on where do your priorities lie? What are you giving energy to? What are you giving your attention to? Of course, it's so easy to make excuses and be like, yeah, I run around 8 hours a day and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And again, it's not to say that that's not a reality for a lot of people. But again, it's like, I can almost guarantee there's at least 5 minutes where you can have your devices off, or you can spend 5 minutes upon waking instead of scrolling, or instead of what do people do in the morning? I don't know, but
Watch
anything
the news.
that too. Yeah. Turn the TV off. Like let's come on. But again, it's zooming out, asking yourself, what kind of life do I want to be living? How do I want to feel in my life? And it's just a matter of deciding. It's like every single day choosing what kind of reality you want to be creating. Okay, what would my, like the person that I want to become, what would they be thinking today? How would they be acting? How would they be feeling? How would they be showing up for their life and their day? And it's taking those small steps. So again, I don't think it's a matter of, you know, having a checklist or a to-do list for your spiritual routine or your feel-good stuff. Like, don't make it a checklist that you have to get through. Make it something where it makes you feel really, really effing good. And that's how you're going to make it part of your day and part of your lifestyle, and something where, whoa, I need some time to myself, or I need to do this for my mental health, or I know that being outside makes me feel good, so I'm going to choose to do that, right? It's just a simple shift in perspective, like reframing it away from I have to do this to, whoa, I'm so grateful that I get to do this, right? Yeah. But starting small is for sure the key, like you said, Sabrina. And I think that, again, the easiest way is setting aside 5 minutes, whether it's meditation you want to get into, journaling is great too, like you said, or just 5 minutes, go walk outside your door, sit on a piece of grass and just be there for 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Leave your phone inside while you do that.
Leave your phone inside. And again, it's not even like you need to necessarily go into this deep meditative state, but just be with the trees, what's around you, be present, and try to just be exactly where your feet are. And it's just going to eventually snowball where, again, it's just a decision of every single day, this is what's important to me in the life that I'm creating for myself.
Absolutely. And the last thing I would say is like, you can trust yourself. You can trust yourself. I was having a conversation with a client yesterday and she asked me a question, and all I did is I reflected it back to her. And I said, all right, if you had to guess what's coming up for you. And she said something and she was like, I don't know if that's the right answer. And I was like, it came up for you, which means it's somewhere in your subconscious. There is no right or wrong answer. And the more that you can practice trusting yourself and living in alignment with that, things are going to get so much easier because you're not going to need the answers from someone outside of you. I
used to literally Google the most insane questions. I would Google like, what if my boyfriend does this and doesn't and then he love me? Should I break up with, like, girl? Oh my God. I can't believe I used to, like, literally, I vividly remember doing that on my floor at like 2 a.m. And it's just, I bring that up because it's like Google, let alone, the internet, but especially even other people, like no one has the answers necessarily for us. We can have some guidance from others, but you can trust yourself. Such a good reminder. And also something that I always try and relate to is that anything that comes up for you in the stillness, in the quietness, it's not good or bad. Like feeling sad or feeling stressed is not bad because those are just messengers. That is just what's coming up to tell us about something, or maybe we need to put our attention somewhere, or maybe again, it's like, this is my signal where something's not in alignment. So I'm going to just tune in, hold space for it. Where is it in my body? And that too, I think, is a really easy way to start relieving that pressure from ourselves of always being so hard on ourselves and always trying to be happy and feel good. But we also need the other side of it, the duality, in order to, have that roadmap of what's really important, or what's flowing for us, or what's in alignment, right?
Absolutely. Marisa, thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad we were able to talk about this. For anyone who wants to connect with you and find you, where can they go?
Yeah. So, I mean, the best place would be my Instagram. I have so many reels and all the stuff we talked about today. It's like all there, which I just, again, my body's buzzing. I love talking about this stuff. My Instagram is Marisa Hope with 3 E's. So MarisaHoppee. And then I have a link in my bio there where you can head to my website. I have an online course where we go over food freedom, body image, mindset work. And I also am diving in more to frequency and manifesting energy. So I also have a YouTube, and that's where I'm talking a lot about those concepts. So
awesome. So I'm going to put all those links in the show notes so that it's easy to find. Thank you so much for being here, Marisa. This was so much fun.
Yeah, you too, Sabrina. This was so good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.